Hey, welcome once again to another episode of B&B Canucks Hockey Talk, our special Friday edition. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Well, Matt, a little under the weather today, but we're going to power through this. Canucks playing fantastic hockey lately. Let's start in goal where Jacob Markstrom is now 6-0 in his last six starts. In his last five starts, he's got a .949 save percentage, which is number one in the NHL since that time. The closest one to him is Sergei Bobrovsky. If the Canucks keep getting goaltending like this, do you see them making a wild card playoff spot?
I still think they're going to end up tailing off just because of that defense in front of them. I still wouldn't trust them. But, yeah, the way Markstrom's been playing of late has just been amazing, especially in that first period last night. When the Canucks had a really slow start, he made maybe three or four really big key saves to keep them in it until in the second period when they started to get things going. And then you had the Horvat power play goal, and then they got that goal right after that. But yeah, he's been playing great. It's just I hope he can keep up this play because it's like we know he can go on his streaks where he can get really hot and then you'll go back to being really cold. But just as long as they keep sprinkling in Nielsen, and I'm hoping we can get Demko up here sooner rather than later. The way that he's been playing and the start that Carter Hart's had in Philadelphia, I think just proves that you got to get some of your younger goalies up sooner rather than later.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, Carter Hart's playing now in Philadelphia. He won his first NHL game. Not surprised to me. I mean, to me, a young goaltender like that just needs to play. They need to get games, whether it's at the NHL level or the AHL level. We will touch on Demko in a sec, but I mean, Anders Nilsson, to me, I think, has played great hockey. He's just unfortunately lost a lot of games in a row. He doesn't seem to get the goal support when he's in net, but he has been playing some really tough teams. Because against Tampa Bay, I thought Nilsson looked great as well.
Yeah, because I think Nielsen, he's 0-7-1 in his last 8 starts. But in only one of those games has he had Canucks score 3 or more goals for him. So if you're basically having to be perfect, and it's the teams that he's also been playing against. He's faced Tampa Bay a couple times. He's faced Nashville, Minnesota. It's a lot of those big tough teams where it's just they're playing Markstrom against St. Louis and Edmonton on the weekend. Beatable teams that I think are for the Canucks. That they can beat every time. So when he's in the net, he's not getting exactly a warm welcome in net where he can pad his stats a little bit at least. But yeah, I think with him being a free agent now, I think it's time to get Demko up. I think he's 23 years old. Hart's 20 years old, and I think I saw reading that the Athletes by Jason Botchford, and he sort of brought up sort of that sort of like the thing where goalies take longer to develop. That's becoming less and less of a thing in the NHL, where goalies are starting to peak out actually younger. Like we just see with Corey Schneider in New Jersey. He's 32 years old, and he's basically done. He hasn't won a game in, now basically over a year in the regular season. So you got to give him his shot, and especially with Nielsen on the way out. And he's playing excellent in the AHL. He's done everything at that level.
Well, why don't you touch on Demko's stats? Because I know Utica is 5-0-1 in their last 6 games. He lost his first few coming in, but now he's 6-3-1. Demko's been playing fantastic down there. But let's touch on him for a sec. What do you think he would do at the NHL level if and when he gets called up?
Well, I think in the preseason, he wasn't as good, but he was adjusting to a third different goalie coach in 3 years. And then right after that, he got the concussion. But he's up to a .915 save percentage in the American League. But I think he's very athletic. I think that's the one thing whenever we see his highlights. He's coming up with doing the splits or being able to stretch out to make saves. But the thing is he's got to get up into the NHL to get that adjustment to getting going against NHL shooters on an everyday night. And the Canucks have to have patience with him if he does have a bad game. Being a goalie, that's where it stands out the most, that you be patient with him, give him another game, and let him keep going so he can adjust or make adjustments every game and go over stuff with Ian Clark. after every game, and he can continue to improve. And heck, he still won his first NHL game too against Columbus, and he was playing well until the little bit of the collapse, and then they won in overtime. But yeah, it's like that's the thing. You gotta give him a shot, and you gotta be patient with him if he doesn't have a great game to keep playing him.
Well, he is the smallest of the three goaltenders at 6'5". Um, let's talk about a smaller goalie who was the only goaltender to not let in a goal during the Canucks preseason, and looks like is going to be the starter for Team Canada here at the World Juniors, Michael DiPietro. Where do you think his timeline is, and do you see him fitting in a role down the road with the Canucks, or is he somebody that the Canucks might have to move in the future?
Yeah, DiPietro is like the most interesting thing. I think it's more just because of his size. We don't see many of his, but his athleticism is like crazy good. How he's able to recover to make saves. He didn't have the best game against Switzerland in Canada's first exhibition game. He didn't face many shots, and not all the goals were his fault. But for a guy that's supposed to be Canada's starter, you would have liked to have seen him have just a little bit of a better game. But I think like the biggest example is Juicy Saros in Nashville, who's a smaller guy at like 5'11" or 5'10". I think DiPietro can sort of be along those lines, but he'll still be like maybe like another 3-4 years, I think, before he's up with the Canucks. Maybe around because he'll be turning pro next year, and then if you give him a year or two, like they did Demko, and then eventually give him up or bring him up, and then you can make your decision if Demko's been playing really well to stick with him as your number one goalie, and then trade DiPietro, or go with two young goalies and then make your decision on who you want to be your number one then.
Well, and I don't think Markstrom's too old yet, so he could still be in a Canucks uniform for many years to come, possibly as Demko's backup, or possibly as 1A, 1B with Demko once he gets here. So it'll be interesting to see. They got lots of options there. I love how they have the youth coming up. And it's not as much as their defense, that's for sure. I mean, their defense, we're going to get a chance to see Quinn Hughes play here in the World Juniors. Looks like he's going to be captaining, or at least assistant captaining, Team USA. We're excited. I know both you and I talked off air how excited we are to see him play live. One of the top skaters outside of the NHL right now, and probably coming to Vancouver before the year end. But how excited are you to see this guy in a Canucks uniform? And where else do you see other improvements coming from with Juolevi now gone for the year?
Yeah, so I'm pretty pumped to see Hughes. I'll get to see him live tomorrow night in Langley when the U.S. have an exhibition game against the Czech Republic. So he sat out yesterday's game in Kamloops. So I'm hoping they don't do the same thing just because he's a lock to be on the team. But yeah, I'm super excited about his mobility from the back end. His skating ability is just so good. One of the best outside the NHL, I would think. And just the way that he can run a power play will be really good. I think Torrey Krug's a really good comparison offensively. I think just the way the size-wise that Krug is and the points that Krug's been able to put up in his career so far. Yeah, and then on that back end, the Juolevi injuries really does suck. I think it was like a torn meniscus, even though that hasn't been confirmed. It just said it was knee surgery sort of thing. But I think they said it was sort of compared to sort of like Shea Weber's injury to his knee, where they thought like it wasn't as bad at first. And then he flew out to Colorado to get a second opinion. And then it looked like surgery was going to be the best way to go about it. So the Canucks, they weighed all their options to try to avoid surgery. But when that was the best option, and it just sucks coming off the back injury for him as well this past offseason, that's basically a year wasted, especially the way he was playing down in Utica. He had the 13 points in 18 games. It just sucks that it's just another year gone.
Well, and I heard it was a knee injury he could potentially have played through, but given his age, it was best to do the surgery route so that he has many more years to come rather than risk further injury. What do the Canucks do? I mean, a guy like Ben Hutton, I think, has surpassed all expectations this year. I mean, he started the year as a healthy scratch. He's come in and he's settled into a pretty good role right now. And what do you do if you're the Canucks? Because they look like they're close to contending right now, like to a playoff spot potentially in a year, potentially next year. Let's forget about this year. But Knowing that you could potentially make the playoffs next year, what do you do with Edler and Tanev? Do you want to keep both of them, or would you want to move one or both of them out of here?
I
Knowing that
think
they could be key pieces moving forward and key guys to helping coach and or helping to mentor your younger players.
yeah, I think Edler you have to trade this offseason for sure, especially with that left side. If you have Hutton, Hughes, and Ulevi on your left side next season, I know that's relatively a younger looking defense, but if you can keep him and Tanev's an interesting defenseman to see how the Canucks will handle his situation. I think they might end up holding on to Tanev. Just because like his name keeps coming up in rumors over and over again, like that the trade to the Leafs is probably the trade that's like talked about the most, but it's never happening every year. But I think he'd be a good lock for somebody like Quinn Hughes next year to really solidify pairing there, and then Ulevi you could put with a guy like Troy Stetcher. I think Eric Goodbranson, I the guy just brings everybody down, whoever's paired with him. Stetcher's had a really good season actually. Before that cheap shot by Martel in Tampa Bay, I'll go on a rant on that later. But yeah, Stetcher's had a really good year. He's actually surpassed his point total from last year already by one. I think he has 12 points in 36 games. He had 11 points all last year in 60-something games. So it's been a really good bounce back season for him. But I think it's just more of the pairings that they have. Like Tanev and Edler are a really slow pairing, and Hutton and Goodbranson haven't particularly been well together. So I'd like the Canucks to switch up their pairings a little bit. Put Hutton with Tanev, Stetcher with Edler, and then you could have Pouliot and Goodbranson as your last pairing.
Well, I think since they've moved Tanev and Edler back together, Edler coming back from his injury, Tanev coming back from his injury, I don't think it's a surprise that the Canucks have been playing well with those two back together. And their penalty killing is absolutely taken off again with Jay Beagle back and Louis Eriksson back on the PK. So I want to give Edler and Tanev a lot of credit there. I do think that even though they might not be the quickest pair out there, they do seem to have so much patience with the puck, and they're able to control the play while they're out there. And Edler seems to throw his body around a little bit more. But let's talk about special teams for the Canucks. So their power play seems to be clicking. Their penalty kill seems to be clicking. Was it a matter of just bringing Jay Beagle back from his injury and taking all that face-off and checking pressure off of Bo Horvat?
I think that's part of it. I think also getting Louis Eriksson back on the PK, it actually makes you wonder, like as much as we crap on him offensively, why he wasn't on the PK to begin with, just because he is so well known of taking care of his own end really well. So I think those two.
Great play yesterday, taking away a backdoor play on the PK. So.
Yeah, because like if you have your two pairing, once when Sutter gets healthy, if you have Sutter and Eriksson, and then Beagle and whoever you want to put on with him, probably Roussel.
I like Roussel. Yeah. He's a pain in the ass.
Oh man, that guy's really growing on me every game. Oh man,
I didn't think I'd be a fan, but I'm starting to like him too. So
yeah, the way he can just get under guys' skin, and just the way he does it, it's just like how can you not love this guy? It's just like it's a little bit of Alex Burrows, but without like the high offensive end to him. Even though he actually has been putting up a decent amount of points, but yeah, that's the guy he reminds me most of, minus the offensive side to Burrows' game. But yeah, getting back to that PK. I think that and getting goaltending. Goaltending solves a lot of things on the PK. If you can get those saves at key times, like even the Tampa Bay game where the Canucks had like that 50-second 5-on-3 that they killed off. I think Nielsen made like a good 3 or 4 saves before Tanev sprung Bertanen on that breakaway out of the box there. But yeah, getting guys back healthy and switching Eriksson back onto the PK over guys like Marcus Granlund and Tim Schaller, who I think that the analytics have shown that they've sucked basically as a pairing together. And Schaller's now in the press box, and he's been taken off any special teams when he is in the lineup. And Granlund, it's just he's just that guy that he's just sort of there playing. Like he'll get a point here and there.
Granlund's the Swiss Army knife, right? And so is Tyler Mott. But I mean, it's hard not to have Mott in the lineup with the speed that he brings and his responsible play at both ends of the ice.
Yeah, I think Mott's actually been like pretty underrated for what he's done. He's played, I believe, every game so far this year, just about.
Remember, we got him for Vanek last year at the deadline, and people were furious we didn't get more.
Yeah, it's like coming from when I saw that return, because everybody was expecting the draft pick, and I still would have liked a draft pick for Vanek, I think, especially the way that he was playing that year.
Mm-hmm.
To get a guy that's playing consistently in the NHL, at least, even though it is in a bottom six role, Mott's actually been doing pretty nice. Like that goal that Stetcher set him up for against Tampa Bay was a really nice goal. I know a couple of his goals, I believe, have been into empty nets, but he's been really a consistent performer on the penalty kill, and Green's able to trust him defensively every night.
Well, let's talk about the alien. We're two of the only media people in Vancouver that haven't received the alien death stare yet. But Pettersson has done something that not a lot of rookies have done. Why don't you talk about his points through the first 32 games, I believe, puts him right up there with some special company.
Yeah, so he has 17 goals, 36 points in only 32 games. The guy's running away with the point totals for all rookies. Just watching him every night. I believe it was last night's game where he actually broke his stick, but he was still able to go up the boards with his skates and make a breakout pass over. It's just like the guy doesn't even need a stick to do his and everything. But I think the big thing that's really stood out for me is for one, his hand-eye coordination is stupid good. Like that puck will be coming by him in the air, and just somehow every time he's able to whack it down and control it, and either set somebody up for a shot or he does his thing going for a goal. And then now on the power play, with Besser being healthy, they're really starting to click. Like Besser's been on a roll of late. I think he has like 9 or 10 goals since coming back from injury. But yeah, those two guys, especially Pettersson, the guy's going to win the Calder Trophy, hands down. We'll say that every show.
Yeah, so Pettersson with his points in the first 32 games, only Alexei Yashin has more in his first 32. He is comparable to Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. He's in like an incredible list of players of the amount of points he's got in his first few games. I know as a Canucks fan, we've got our fingers crossed that he's going to be still comparable after a few seasons here. Brock Besser, let's talk about him, the flow. Did you see the Sportsnet documentary on him?
No, I have not yet, but I've known the story about the special needs girl in the prom thing for a while. I know that was part of it. But yeah, the guy's such a genuinely nice person. And I know that story about I believe it is Bailey, right? Was her name, if I remember?
Yeah, Bailey's the girl's name. It also talks about his best friend passing away when he made the World Juniors. But it goes through a whole lot. Even his hairdresser learned about his nickname, The Flow, through him. So it's a great story. It's a great 20-minute documentary that Sportsnet did. Very well done. Let's talk about some of the depth scoring on this team. Josh Levo scores a great goal last night on a terrible goalie, but he did that on purpose. And Jake Virtanen scores, and you could hear the crowd start chanting, "Shotgun Jake." Somehow beer sales went through the roof just after that goal. What about those two guys and their consistent play lately?
Yeah, so Josh Levo has 4 goals, 5 points in 9 games since the trade to Vancouver, and he's really fitting really well on that line with Pettersson and Besser. I think he's really good for puck retrievals, and he's just really smart going to the front of the net and just letting Brock and Elias do their thing. And then if there's some garbage out front or something, then you'll pick that up. But yeah, that goal last night, that was a really smart goal. It was sort of like a Sidney Crosby goal where we've seen him do that a couple of times over his career, where he's behind the net and he just somehow banks it off.
If he wants it to be Sidney Crosby, he's got to pick it out of the air first.
But he's been great, and Jake Virtanen, setting a new career high in goals with his 11th last night. Talk about a guy that's like a city's fell in love with now. Just one little thing. It's just like Shotgun Jake. That's all that needs to be said. And I think the people in Vancouver know what you're talking about. And it's just like every time after Twitter, it's just the Twitter timeline feed is just all Shotgun Jake stuff. I think the funny thing was, I think one of TSN 1040's hosts, Blake Price, he did his first one the other day, and he got sprayed in the eye or whatever. But he made up for it last night, doing a successful shotgun last night. But yeah,
if you don't know what Shotgun Jake is, check out Twitter. Have a look
yeah.
at it. It's a lot of fun. And I remember when they played Tampa Bay early in the morning, and Jake Virtanen scored a goal. Was it Tampa? No, sorry, it was Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo.
When they played Buffalo, he scored a goal at about 10:30 in the morning, and Vancouver erupted by Shotgun Jake. Hey, doesn't matter if it's 10:30 in the morning, time to do it, right? So,
but yeah, the guy's halfway, over halfway now to 20 goals. That's what we're looking for from Jake. If he can get to 20 goals, and I know he's not getting as many assists, but 20 goals, 35 points, I'd call that a pretty successful year, building off from last season. And then Antoine Roussel. I think that's the third depth guy I talk about.
Yeah, I was going to talk about four more guys, Roussel being one of them, and just the energy that he's brought to the team. Goldobin, he has the skill, but he seems to be dropping off again. Gadet seems to be moving ahead and forward and getting better and stronger as each game goes along. And who's the other guy I wanted to talk about? Jay Beagle. Since he's been back in the lineup, I mean, he brings so much to being a right-handed face-off man, being able to penalty kill, and taking on a leadership role with this team. Why don't you touch on those four guys?
Yeah, so I think Gaudette's been really impressive so far this year. I know he hasn't been getting the points, but as of late, he's been getting the scoring chances, which is good to see. And I think the biggest thing will be when Sutter comes back from injury, what the heck they're going to do with this guy, because the guy deserves to be in the NHL. No matter what, if they have to look through a trade option to move somebody to keep them up, or move them to the wing or something along those lines, so he can stay in the lineup every night. Gained another goal last night. That was good. His first goal on home ice of his career was really good. Jay Beagle. It's still a bit of a smaller sample size, but at least that's another guy that can take some heat off Horvat on the face-offs, and he's really helped the PK of late. And then Antoine Roussel, the guy has 3 goals, 15 points in 33 games, so just about half a point every second game. I think the guys really fit in really well with actually Bo Horvat. Those two as a pair, even though it's not a guy that you'd want typically wanting to play with Horvat just with the way that he plays, but the way he, as we brought up earlier, how he can get under guys' skin, but he can also play. He can put the puck in the net. I still remember that first game against Florida. That first game he came back from injury, and Vincent Trocheck had like that crazy goal celebration, and then Roussel had that penalty shot, and he did like the same thing just to taunt the Florida bench. It's just little things like that that just make you fall in love with him, sort of whenever he plays the game, and then getting things started in the second period where he had that huge hit on Gord against right into the corner of the glass by the bench. And then if you watch the replay, Gord is the one that drops the gloves first. His one glove drops first before Roussel. And then he goes to town on him. And then that really fired things up for the rest of that period, followed by that Martel headshot to Stetcher, where I still can't believe it's not a suspension.
Well, then between that game and the Colorado game earlier this year, where the Canucks won 7-6 in overtime, Pettersson getting 5 points that game. Those two games, the game against Tampa, the game against Colorado, to me reminded me a lot of the Canucks back in like 2004, 2005, when the Canucks, for the first time back then, Jovanovski, I believe, scored in overtime to beat Colorado, who was like Joe Sakic and Peter Forsberg and all those guys. And it was the first time that you saw like the West Coast Express team when the Sabines were young and stuff. That was the first time you saw them win and step up in a big game in the regular season. And it kind of helped, mold that team for the future. And when I saw that game against Colorado and I saw them stand up for each other and play a great game against Tampa, even though they lost, those two games to me have, they've signaled that this ship is moving in the right direction, that they're learning how to win and that they're learning how to play at this level, even though they're so young. And, what stood out for you? Like if those two games have stood out for me, what have stood out for you showing or signaling that the Canucks are well on their way to coming back to the playoffs in the next year or two?
Yeah, so I think the two games, I know one of them's a loss, but the win again in Columbus, where they weren't really in it, and then at the very end, they just turned it on, and the puck went off Harrison's foot, and then Virtanen squeaked that one through Korpisalo late, and then in the Nashville game, even though they lost in overtime, that was another game where they weren't really playing that well, and then all of a sudden Besser scores on the power play, and then Captain Bo Horvat scored to tie it. It's just I think it's just little things like that. And going on that huge losing streak, now they're back up to 500, which is great, and that's sort of where they wanted to be around going into the Christmas break. I think we play the Jets tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. That could be a tough game with the way the Jets have been playing, but to see that they can climb back out of that little funk and get themselves back up to 500, and technically only 1 point out of a playoff spot, even though they've played a gazillion more games than everybody else still, which is still frustrating at times, where it's like you see it's like, oh, that like the Stars have played like 3 or 4 less games than the Canucks, so sort of tough to compare. But
Well, and let's talk about that. I mean, they're right now in the standings. I overheard Vancouver media, people from outside looking in saying that the Canucks have benefited from a weaker Pacific Division, but realistically, they've hardly played any teams in the Pacific Division, right? They played Calgary twice and back-to-back to start the season. They played Edmonton just once. They've done the California trip, LA, Anaheim, San Jose. I don't think any of those teams have been into Vancouver yet. Maybe once, but they, look at Arizona. We've only played them once, and we lost to them. We lost that whole California trip. So we've lost to most of the people in our division. And the games that they're winning, they've played Tampa twice. They've played Pittsburgh twice. They've played Nashville twice. They've already played Winnipeg twice. They've played a lot of good teams. They've done a lot of their road trips, and they've won against good teams. So to me, if you look at the balance of their schedule, they will be playing those weaker so-called Pacific Division teams a lot more coming in the new year, and a lot of Central Division games, who they really haven't, played too many games yet against. But do you think that's going to help them moving forward, playing teams like Edmonton, Arizona, and Los Angeles moving forward?
Yeah, I would hope so. I think it just sort of comes down to how they're playing and the goaltending that they're getting. Because I think with the big three in Horvat, Besser, and Pettersson, if those guys are going every night, then you're going to be in every game for the most part. But yeah, it is interesting to see, because like the Sharks, like I know they're up there, but Martin Jones's save percentage is still below 900 this season, which is very disappointing. I think there, especially I had him as one of the more underrated goalies going into this year, but he hasn't exactly lived up to that. And Erik Karlsson, like he still has a decent amount of points, but he hasn't been like that superstar status that everybody was expecting him to go
Well,
to. Right?
and neither is Evander Kane for that matter, right? But
Yeah, like Kane. No, go ahead.
I was going to say the Canucks, they have played more games than other teams. They do have, I think, a favorable schedule to finish off this season compared to other teams. We both have them still not making the playoffs, but how important is this trading deadline and offseason going to be for Jim Benning? Like, to me, this is the one. This is that time where they need to decide who's going to be on this team going forward and who they can still get potentially more younger assets for. Like, if they don't win the draft lottery, are we going to see a huge trade here for potentially Jack Hughes, like a lot of fans want to see, so we could have another set of brothers on the team?
Yeah, so especially this trade deadline, I think the Alex Edler situation, I think that will be at the top of the list. I think Benning said in January they're going to start to go over things with Edler and see if they're either going to trade him or look to extend him for our sakes. I hope they trade him just because this will be at his peak value or as high as it's going to get. And especially there's going to be a lot of teams looking to trade for him, like guys like Toronto or Pittsburgh. have sort of been thrown out there as a couple teams that could be looking to get him. And then depending on what else they want to do with some of their depth guys, because once when Berchi comes back, there'll be another forward that they're gonna have to look. And Sam Gagner, I still think we can pick up something for him, some sort of asset if we take half his salary in a trade, since he has the one more year still left on his contract, and to get somebody back for him that way, I think that would help. Somewhere there, and then the Chris Tanev situation. I think the Canucks will hang on to him. It looks like, but even though I'd like to see if they can get something in value back for him. But yeah, and then this offseason, that lottery, because we know it's not going to go our way, because it never does.
It might be the year. It might be the year.
Yeah. But yeah, like just for me as a Canucks fan, I'm just hoping for a top 3 pick, because basically like the past few years, like anybody taken in the top 3 has basically just about coming to the NHL right away and help produce.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, Edler and Tanev, they're going to be a big decision on what they're going to do with them. I think up front, Sutter and Berchi are going to be 2 guys that it'll be interesting to see what they do with them. And then if we can get something for Gagne or Delzato or even Pouliot, those are guys, maybe even Nilsson. I mean, those are guys that may not come back. I mean, some teams out there look like they can use a goaltender, Philadelphia. And it might be they might be able to find a team that will take Nilsson for a pick. So, but right now our draft picks what the Canucks need. I mean, they can still get younger, but their core is definitely here at the age of 20, 21. And, if we can help get some more supporting players, I mean, we still have Jonathan Dolan that's probably going to make potentially a debut before the end of this season. Quinn Hughes will step into the lineup. To me, this is the core of this team. And going forward, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we've got to still pay Brock Besser this year. I don't see him holding out, though, like William Nylander. But anyways, World Juniors coming up. Outside of DiPietro and Quinn Hughes, Canucks have a couple other guys that may play. Tyler Madden for the U.S. and Toni Uutinen for Finland. Are you looking forward to seeing what they can bring?
Yeah, so Madden, I'm actually pretty excited that he's been getting a real shot to make this U.S. team, and I'm hoping to see him tomorrow as well, as it looks like he'll be getting a spot. Uutinen, I don't think he'll be getting as much ice time, because Finland just picked up Henri Jokiharju and Urho Vaakanainen from Chicago and Boston. They both loaned them to the Finnish World Junior team, and both of those guys are defensemen. So from all the guys that were already there, that's your top 2, or that's your number 1 pairing right there, and then everybody gets bumped down 1 notch. At least he has made this team. He'll probably be on the bottom pairing. I would think, not looking at their roster.
He's going to be the 6 or 7 guy.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see, because he actually, like that one game that we did watch over the summer showcase games with Canada, U.S., Sweden, and Finland playing in there. He did get a Player of the Game award in that first game against Canada. So the Finns actually think pretty high of him. But I think with those 2 guys in Jokiharju and Vaakanainen coming in, I think that hurts his chances of getting a decent amount of ice time.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give us the final word, and we'll wrap up today's Canucks edition of the show.
All right. Yeah. So this is our final show of the year. We'll be back in January to start things up again. Only 3 games tonight in the NHL, and Canada's facing Slovakia in their second exhibition game. So I'll have those highlights up on our Facebook page. And then we'll see. I think tomorrow there's a lot of games, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to that Czech Republic, Langley, in Canada, or U.S. Czech Republic game tomorrow night. So the highlights might not post until tomorrow or on the Sunday with them, and then there'll be the 3-day break on the NHL, and then
we expect a full Facebook Live report.
yeah. So I'll put some comments on the game after just because I am very interested in seeing the Hughes brothers and Philippe Zadina and Martin Necas. Those 2 guys starred for the Czech Republic in last year's World Juniors. So I'm pretty pumped to see those guys tomorrow. So, but yeah, and then maybe over the the 3-day break, I'll post some stuff on some heroes and zeros from each NHL team just to see who's been producing and who hasn't. I think there's some teams out there that are frustrated with some players that they've brought in or bad contracts, and some other guys that have really come into themselves, like guys like Jack Eichel this year, who have really stood out this year. Just so you guys get some more content. But yeah, the highlights will still be up while we're on the break. But yeah, no live show until January.
So for Matt and for Aaron, remember to like and subscribe us on Facebook and YouTube, B&B Hockey Talk. Everyone have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys in the new year.